Assalamu alaikum, Darshak Mandali. I'm name Dr. Jahangir Kabir. Welcome to Community Affairs. I am filling in today for Jessica Tartila. She is away today. We have a great program here. We have a great guest here. We're going to introduce you very shortly. But before that, I would like to say a few things about what is happening in the race at 32nd Council District for our city of New York. As you know, that our very own Halal Sheikh ran in this district and had a very, very strong showing. He actually got the 31% vote in the district in that election and came second. So that really proves that the Bengali community is very, very big factor to determine who is the winner in the general election on November 7th. November 7th is the general election. With that, we actually have the Democratic nominee, Mike Scala. Hello, Mike. Welcome to Time Television and Community Affairs.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Thank you for coming in, and we're going to have a conversation very soon. But before that, I would like to give you the option to sort of introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. My name is Mike Scala. I am the Democratic nominee for City Council in the 32nd District. Before running for office, I was and still am an attorney. I have experience in the private sector, arguing civil litigation cases, as well as in the public sector, working as legal counsel and legislative director in the state Senate. I've also spent the last several years as the vice president of the Queens Public Transit Committee, fighting for better transportation in Queens and throughout our city. And it will be an honor to have your support on Tuesday, November 7th.
Thank you, Mike. That was a very nice pitch and introduction to our viewers. So with that, let's jump to the meat and potatoes and the issues that really impacts the community. So as you're probably aware of, I'm sure you are aware of the situation that there is a flyer going around throughout the neighborhood that is attributed to you, which really does not portray or did not portray Halal Sheikh, the council, the person who was running against you in primary. Did you do it first of all?
Of course not. No, I was disgusted when I saw that. This is how low the opposition is stooping right now. They attributed a flyer to us or people affiliated with us very recently too. This suddenly emerged. And they said that it was circulated in Rockaway before the primary, before September 12th. If such a thing existed, don't you think someone would have seen it before now, before a few days before the general election? This is desperation coming from the other side because they know that so many South Asian voters are turning out and they're getting scared. The Republican nominee knows that South Asian voters don't want to vote Republican. Why would they? This is the party of Trump. This is the party that proposed the Muslim ban. Of course, they're naturally Democratic voters, but because there are so many people coming out to vote, which is a beautiful thing, they're trying to demonize the competition and say you should vote against the party you normally would because of a silly flyer like this. It's disgusting. There's no way our camp would have put that out or had anything to do with that. And like I said, this obviously would have been caught before. They said this was in Rockaway. There were so many people trying to stop us in Rockaway who would have called attention to this. For it to emerge at a staged press conference right before the general election, come on, it's embarrassing what they're doing. They're using fear tactics and they're not being honest. They're running a very dishonest campaign because they're scared, and it's a shame.
So, Mike, you said that this flyer was not visible during the primary election. That's what you're saying?
They're saying it was distributed before the primary, but nobody saw it until now. Why didn't
you never saw it?
I never saw it. We never heard of anyone seeing it. If it really existed, someone would have found it and come forward with it before now.
I agree. That's a good point. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that. As you know, that Halal Sheikh is a respected member of our community, and if someone talks about him like this, it's definitely troublesome for the community.
It's troublesome, and also the flyer has the phrase radical views. I caught that. That's a phrase that's being repeated by the other side's campaign, the Republican nominees' campaign. They've used that elsewhere. We never even used that phrase on any of our literature, nothing associated with us. We never said such and such has radical views. This is out of their playbook. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that anyone would suggest that we had anything to do with something like this. We are the party of inclusiveness. Our campaign staff is very diverse. I am the Democratic nominee, and like I said, that scares them. They know that most people want to vote for the Democrat. They don't want to vote for the Republican, so they're trying to demonize me and our campaign, and it's a shame what they're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate your response on this. Now let's get back to another very important issue that is near and dear to the Bangladeshi Muslim community in Ozone Park, Uday Haven, Richmond Hill, and throughout your district, even throughout New York City, which is a halal meal for our kids in school.
Yes.
Where do you stand on that issue? I had an opportunity to ask the Mayor Bill de Blasio a question on his last town hall in East New York, and he said it's too expensive to provide the kids a halal nutrition meal. So what do you stand on it? What do you think you can do if you are elected as a city council member?
Well, look, cost is always a valid concern, but the conversation cannot end there. When you have about 10% of our students in New York City who are Muslim, this is a First Amendment issue, and to say that they cannot receive halal meals in school is, in my estimation, a violation of the First Amendment right. We do have a right to practice our religion, and we have to take that seriously. And so you can't just blame it on the cost. Let's find ways to get it done. I mean, we're wasting money as a city. There are ways we can save money as a city, but let's ensure that our religious rights are being respected.
Thank you so much. I never really thought about that issue as a constitutional issue and First Amendment issue. Well, that's an interesting way to put it. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Now let's move to housing issues. Mm-hmm. As you know, New York City is facing an acute housing crisis. Housing are simply not affordable in New York City. And you know that Mayor is going along with his housing plan, which he has planned to upzone many neighborhoods in the community, including East New York is one of them, which is a neighboring community next to Ozone Park. What's your view on this, and how do you think this program may help solve this big problem?
It is a problem. I think we have to first acknowledge that we need more affordable housing stock in the city. But there's always a balancing act that I think goes on. As we develop communities, we want to make sure that people who live there now aren't priced out of their own communities. So gentrification is an issue, which is why I support initiatives like local hiring, strong local hiring, tax incentives for hiring locally, ensuring that people who are already in these communities can reap the benefits of the changes that we're bringing to them, which does happen when you upzone and do things of that nature. But we do need to make sure that more affordable housing is available to people. And part of what I propose also is making sure NYCHA is fully funded, because we have waiting lists at NYCHA, and we have homeless people because they can't get into these apartments. So let's ensure that NYCHA is funded so that we can repair apartments and do what we can to increase our affordable housing stock while preserving the nature and character of our various neighborhoods. That's another legal term, but we want to make sure that our local communities have input into what happens within their borders. And tough decisions will have to be made. It's not always going to be a matter of the local community getting their way all the time, but they should be part of the conversation. And before major housing decisions are made, I think input should be sought from our local communities. How do we handle this? We acknowledge that there is an issue, but you need to look at this from all sides.
Got you. Well, that's a great point. But one of the things that Bill de Blasio mentioned when he decided to upzone this neighborhood, he actually, even Councilmember Espinal, who's East New York is part of his district, they use logic, said, well, you know what, look what happened in Bushwick. We did not rezone it, but look, people got priced out of it.
Right.
So it's a supply and demand issue.
Right.
So how would you counter that
well,
argument? I think there's some validity to it.
There is validity to it. And you do have to study history, see what happened in Bushwick, see what happened throughout the city. Look what happened in Bed-Stuy.
Williamsburg,
Harlem, yeah, I was going to say it's beyond just Brooklyn, right? It's happening in Harlem, and it can happen in Queens, too. I think we need to take lessons from all of these things. Understand market forces are also at play, and we can't discount that. Part of that is accepting that our neighborhoods, our world is changing, and that's part of it as well, but that doesn't mean we can't fight back and try to preserve our good neighborhoods to the extent possible as well.
All right, thank you for that. Now let's move to Mayor Bill de Blasio program Vision Zero. which is actually impacting your district tremendously.
Tremendously. Yes.
Recently
Yes.
I drove on.
That's what I was going to say. You took a trip down Woodhaven Boulevard lately.
I did.
Yeah, yeah.
I did. So I took a trip on Woodhaven Boulevard, and things are not very pretty. I have seen things that are happening,
No.
but also I will also tell you that, according to statistics, since the Vision Zero was implemented, New York City, for the first time, first 6 months of 2017, had less than 100 fatalities.
Right.
So there definitely it's helping save lives, but at the same time, this is also choking our roadways. So how do you approach this, and how do you think we can come to a solution that we can do the both?
Right. I appreciate that. I mean, it's called Vision Zero. Some people, first they say it's zero vision. It's zero vision, right?
Okay.
But there is a valid goal there. And I think the idea of reducing fatalities on the road is certainly a good goal to have, and we shouldn't downplay that, right? That's a good thing. At the same time, we have to recognize that South Queens is a transportation desert. And I've been focused on making sure people can get to their destinations faster. That's one way to create economic growth. You allow people to get to school faster, to work faster. They can access jobs further away. Let's connect our city. And it takes us too long to get anywhere from Queens. And that's a problem. And so, again, I think there's a balancing act that needs to be done. But I think what they're doing on Woodhaven Boulevard is a disaster. I think that this is one of the most congested north-south thoroughfares in our area already. And by reducing road capacity, you're making that much worse. You're not going to frustrate everyone out of their cars into the bus. I mean, in South Queens, we need to drive. That's just the reality of our area. And I think some of these plans are being designed by people maybe from Manhattan or from the inner city who don't really know what it's like for us in Queens. And that's a problem. I've long advocated for the Queens Rail, which is a right-of-way parallel to Woodhaven Boulevard, where we can improve public transit without sacrificing roadway. And I think that's important. Also, what they're doing on Woodhaven Boulevard is a mess just in terms of the logistics. The plan just isn't well designed, putting bus stops in the median, removing local bus stops to facilitate this. So even if you're spending less time on the bus, you might be spending more time getting to the bus because you have to travel further to the bus stop. That's a problem. Also removing left turn lanes, so businesses are hindered. Access to our businesses and our roads is interfered with. So again, it's not that select bus service can never work or is categorically a bad thing. It's that it doesn't work here in the manner in which they're trying to implement it.
Sure. So listen, I get it. I think you made it very clear your position on this.
Yeah.
So tell our viewers, what are you going to do about this? What do you think? What is the plan to move forward?
We're going to keep fighting it. So first of all, the way to build political capital to get something done is to show everyone, show your colleagues, show the public, show everyone that we're not going to give up. When an idea is dumb and dangerous as this one is, we have to keep the fight going. The incumbent council member said that this was a done deal, we were never going to stop it. And when you come to the bargaining table with a defeatist attitude, you're never going to get your wish. You're never going to get the community to keep fighting it.
That's a great point.
The colleagues in city government, they're going to say, okay, you're saying that it's a done deal. You represent this area. Let's move on to something that we actually can do. But when something is as bad an idea as this, even if they start to do it, you still have to keep the fight up against it. I'll also mention that the councilman was one of the architects behind the plan. He initially proposed it a while back. Then he flip-flopped and was against it. Then he said it was inevitable. But I think we need more responsible leadership who has the foresight to recognize when a plan is bad so that we don't get ourselves into this mess in the first place.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So we talked about many things so far. Now let's talk about education.
Yes.
I mean, it's critical that I truly believe that education is the ticket to middle class or out of poverty.
Yes.
So what's your vision for education in your district?
I've always said education has to be at the centerpiece of our long-term economic strategy. It goes beyond just the short term. It's even a national defense issue, if you really think about it. We need a more educated populace. And in particular, I've been a strong proponent of after-school programs. I think we need more after-school programs. I think we need to be focusing on more practical skills. Before I went to law school, I studied computer science. I've got a degree in computer science from the Polytechnic Institute of NYU. And I know that that's really at the center of our new 21st century economy. So let's get our youngsters learning about mobile apps, how to program, how to code. I think a lot of them find it fun and entertaining, and they're better at it even than we are. Let's get them into that kind of thing at a young age. Also, practical skills. Like I've also said, we can do Common Core math, but we can't balance a checkbook. We can't keep track of our own finances. Let's teach financial literacy. Let's teach the importance of being a good citizen and civics education, who our local officials are. Why should we all be voting? Let's, you know what I mean? Let's teach things that will really serve us going forward, practically, not just in the abstract, not just on an intellectual level, but things that we can really put to use.
Well, there's a couple of things you mentioned, coding,
Yes.
and you also mentioned financial literacy. So it's funny that it's very interesting that it's not funny, it's very interesting, and I think it's very relevant that you mentioned coding in high schools
Yes.
or even middle
younger.
school.
I think even, believe it or not, in elementary school, you can introduce students to coding in after-school programs. Very, very simplistic, but kind of get them thinking along those lines. And it's also, I think, very stimulating for their brain. I think it'll help them in other areas of school as well.
Sure. So you know the Amazon is looking for a second home.
Yeah.
The mother of e-commerce.
Right.
And I believe more than 200 cities are competing for it, and New York City is one of them. Right. And one of the criteria for Amazon is they want to see their high school curriculum. Is coding part of it? So it's intriguing to me that you are mentioning this, and if you want to bring in a giant like Amazon,
Sure.
this is a telltale sign for cities across the country.
Right.
What do you really need to focus on?
That's right.
What's your thought on that?
This is where the jobs are. I mean, like this is what I was saying. This is our 21st century economy. The big jobs are in technology, in that field, in that sector. And we need to make sure that our students, our kids, are well equipped for this job market, for this economy that they're inheriting. Because we're not going to be here forever. Our kids are going to be inheriting the planet from us, and we need to make sure they're ready for this world that they're taking on.
Let's continue on the theme for coding. I had an opportunity to listen to Senator Hamilton in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I was in Brownsville, Mayor Bill de Blasio's, I believe there was 42nd town hall. He's going to a town hall spree.
Sure.
And Senator Hamilton mentioned that he is starting a program in his district where high school kids can get an education, get a training on coding, and after finishing their coding, they can get an $80,000 job. So my question to you that would you be looking into instituting something like this in your district?
Yes, without question.
And if you do that, do you think that program, how would you market that program to the Bengali Muslim community in your district? Obviously, this side of the district is not very well served.
Right. Well, I think that speaks to the issue of this part of the district is not being represented well enough in general. It's not just a matter of resources as in funding. That's very important. But it's also about outreach, right? And making sure that people get all the information that a council office is able to disseminate, that they have a link between the community and the government, and their local representative. Part of that entails ensuring that there is a liaison of South Asian descent who's from the community working in the office. Part of that entails events with the community, working more with the community, being more visible. But I think that that's important. I think that representation is lacking. I think that we see more of it in the south of the district, but we need the entire district covered, and I'm eager to take on that role.
Great. So I also teach at a college, so education is a big thing for me. And another thing you mentioned that financial literacy.
Yes.
I think that's vital for any community's long-term survival and surviving really well. So what are the nitty-gritty of your plans? How do you plan to educate people on financial issues in your district? What are some of the plans?
So when I worked as legislative director in the state senate, I actually worked on legislation that would tackle this at the state level. But we were trying to mandate financial literacy as part of the public school curriculum. I would take a similar approach at the city level. And beyond that, let's tie that into the after-school programs as well. Let's have after-school programs about basic financial literacy. And it's kind of a funny phrase now, balancing a checkbook. People don't really use checkbooks like they used to anymore. But the whole idea is keeping track of your finances, budgeting, knowing what's coming in, what's coming out, knowing about taxes. You know what I mean? Just knowing how to spend your money and save your money wisely.
Sure. So we're going to continue on education because that is the main issue in our community to build a stronger and better and greater community. Mayor Bill de Blasio is starting 3K program.
Yes.
Okay, so what's your position on this? And I believe it's started in somewhere in Brooklyn as a pilot. It's
Yeah, it's
extending.
being right. It's being expanded. I actually started pre-K myself when I was still 3. It just worked out that way.
Sure.
But I think it benefited me. I think early education is very important, and I think that that option should be available to everyone. You know, I wouldn't force 3-year-olds to
Go to
do
school,
it,
right?
or force their parents to put them in if they don't want to. But I think it's good to have that option and make sure that anyone who wants to get their child started that early is able to do so.
Great. So another thing that I'm going to talk about right now is something that Ozone Park, the Bengali community in your district would like to know.
Mhm.
I believe Queen CB 9 and 10, Community Board 9 and 10,
Yes.
it represented in Ozone Park and Woodhaven
And
and
Woodhaven.
Richmond
That's right.
Hill.
That's right.
Based on my knowledge, not that many people of South Asian descent
Yes.
are currently
They're-
serving.
yes,
And let me
underrepresented.
also make this clear, Mr. Scala, that absolutely no one from Ozone Park area is on the community board. So what's your plan? If you are
Right.
elected, I know you can appoint as many as 25.
Right, there are some, but not nearly enough. And I think you have CB10 in particular, which is underrepresented.
That's right.
And so, no, I am committed to appointing members of the community to these CBs because, as you mentioned, part of the council member's role is to do just that. The borough president ultimately appoints them, but half of the 50, I believe, are appointed by the council member or
That's correct.
recommended by the council
Yes,
member.
recommended by
And-
council
Right,
member, yes.
and so I take that very seriously.
And you're gonna do that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really good. Let's talk about crime. So as you know, crime in New York City is continuing to going down, and I think one of the consequences of unintended consequences of law crime is affordability in terms of housing.
Sure.
Because as crime is going down, people are moving in with more
Right.
means there in their pocket.
Right.
So, and the NCO program, neighbor community officers, that's being a big hit, and the mayor credits the NCO program a lot
Yes.
for continuation of crime down. What's your stance on this? Will you support expansion of this program throughout the city? And
No, I do. I do. Crime is an interesting topic because we always talk about crime in New York City, I think almost as if it happens in a vacuum, but it doesn't. I think that we don't realize that crime historically is tied to the economy, and that actually is a national issue. I mean, you could look at crime waves throughout history. They tend to spike when the economy is down and drop when the economy improves. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think that neighborhood policing is a very important tool that we need to be expanding and doing more of. I attend a church in Howard Beach, and I was very pleased to see a neighborhood police officer who was assigned to our area come in and speak to the congregation, saying, this is my name, this is what I'm doing, I want to meet all of you, here's my phone number, call me when you have any problems. I think it's important that we have this type of relationship with the police officers who are serving us, because we don't want this tension that we sometimes feel, especially in minority communities. We want to make sure that we know and can trust our officers, and more importantly, I think that they know and trust us, that
Sure.
they see us as people, not as objects or not just as a population that they're serving or that they're policing,
Sure.
but that they're working together in partnership, because we all want to support our police. We want our police to support us, but we want there to be a strong line of communication and partnership, and I think that neighborhood policing is a great way to do that.
Great, thank you so much on this. We are running very low on time. So last question I would like to ask you, what is your plan? As you know, a lot of Bengalis in Bangladeshi folks they have very much entrepreneurial spirit, and they own a lot of small business in Ozone Park area and
Yes.
Woodhaven and Richmond Hill area. What's your plan for them? What are you going to do to help them?
Well, first of all, the first thing I thought of was the transportation issue, because, like I was saying, a lot of the businesses now are being blocked by the select bus service and the left turns that they're removing. So let's make sure that people can get to our businesses. But beyond that, let's cut some of the red tape. A lot of our businesses close within the first year. They just can't navigate the red tape and the bureaucracy and everything that's kind of put in their way by government. And in New York City, let's be honest, there's a lot of regulation. A lot of that is good, but we want to make sure that it's not too burdensome, because we do want to support our small businesses. And I support greater tax incentives for local hiring, so that when they hire more people from the community, they know that we have their back, and we're making it easier for them to do that and prosper in employing our locals who live and work in the area.
So do you think that obviously these small businesses definitely can be benefited if there's a process that is streamlined and
Right.
easier for them to get things done at the
Right.
city level? I know there's a lot of businesses complain about a lot of businesses complain that city usually comes in and writes summons because of warnings. That's a huge issue.
Right.
That's a huge issue in our community. What do you think that you can do to carve those down a little bit?
Well, I think that's part of the red tape I'm talking about, cutting, right? This is just the burden that we're putting in the way of small business, and sometimes we're not supporting them the way we are. We're targeting them too heavily. I think we're scrutinizing our businesses too much. And so we need to be good partners. We need to be allies
you.
of theirs, not adversaries. Also on that topic, I would also mention the MWBE program, which is the Minority and Women-Owned Business Program.
Right.
I had a chance to work on that when I was in the Senate. But I want to strengthen that at the city level. I want to make sure the city is meeting its goals, its hiring goals, and also expand outreach and education about that, because a lot of our minority and women-owned businesses can achieve contracts.
We are, a very interesting topic.
Yes.
So we are short on time.
Yes.
I would like to give you 15 seconds.
Okay.
If you want to talk and say something to the audience,
Sure.
15 seconds.
Well, I thank you all for taking the time to watch and listen. This was a great discussion. Once again, my name is Mike Scala. I'm the Democratic nominee for City Council, and it would be a pleasure to represent each and every one of you in the City Council. I promise to provide the representation that I believe has been lacking in this area, and I'm asking for your vote on Tuesday, November 7th. Thank you.
দর্শক মণ্ডলী, আমাদের প্রোগ্রাম আজকে এখানেই শেষ করতে যাচ্ছি আমরা. Thank you, Mike Scala, for coming in and having this conversation with us. Definitely, we have covered a lot of important issues that impacts our community. আপনাদেরকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ জানিয়ে আমি এখানেই বিদায় নিচ্ছি. Thank you so much.